Hello and welcome back to Star Wars Forever. In this video I'm going to be talking about the new batch of announcements that came out on the, what was it called, the Disney Investor Day 2020, something like that, where Disney were laying out all their new projects for the next couple of years to all of their investors, I guess. There were a few previews that they showed for Star Wars shows and upcoming projects that weren't made available to the general public, but to the investors, I guess. I'm not sure if that's like even people who just have stock in Disney, I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, it was this thing where it was building up and they're going to announce all the new Star Wars things. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be as big of a deal as it ended up being, and this was about a week or two ago now. I'm kind of, I'm not exactly getting right in at the where did that go? I don't know, my brain was jumping all over the place. I'll leave that in for free. I'm not exactly getting in here like when the news is fresh, but it's it's worth talking about. And someone did say in the comments they'd like to hear my thoughts on the new Star Wars show. So let's just get into it. And from memory, show how good I am at preparing these things. From memory, let's go through the new shows, the new live action shows and animated shows that Star Wars will be developing, producing, and releasing over the next couple of years. So first of all, we've confirmed The Mandalorian Season 3. In fact, today, the day that I'm recording this video, Jon Favreau was on Good Morning America and confirmed that there will be Mandalorian Season 3 with our main character that we know and love returning. There's been some rumors spinning around that Pedro Pascal was not happy about being under the mask in Season 2 and that he was going to quit halfway through the season, and vultures like Grace Randolph are kind of jumping all over that and stoking the fire as much as possible. But, I'm not sure how true that is. Probably not very. I mean, he seems like a pretty smart guy, and, the effect of concealing his face and then revealing his face at the right moments is so impactful. Surely he would understand that. I don't know. Either way, Mandalorian Season 3 will be coming. The second season just wrapped up this past week. And there are 4 shows that are going to be all interlinked within that Mandalorian timeline. So the first one is Mandalorian itself, Season 3. Then there's Rangers of the New Republic. There's no information about that as far as I'm aware. It doesn't really grab me all that much. Then we have Ahsoka. There's going to be a standalone Ahsoka series. Rosario Dawson will be continuing to play the character in live action. Dave Filoni is writing that series right now. And I should say, of course, right up front, these are all Disney Plus, series. And there were a couple of movie announcements as well, which I'll get to in just a second. So there's the Ahsoka show, and then the fourth one is the one that they didn't announce on the Investor Day kind of announcement. What would you even call it? The announcement presentation, I suppose, of sorts. They didn't announce the fourth one, which is the Book of Boba Fett. So that was kind of announced at the very end of Spoilers Season 2, with Boba Fett turning up at Jabba's palace and kind of taking the throne. So that's really interesting, because when that happened, I wasn't sure if that was is that going to be like an arc within Mandalorian Season 3 or its own standalone show? So now we got the answer. That Jon Favreau wanted to kind of keep that close to the chest and have people be surprised that even though we'd been given this announcement of 10 new Star Wars shows, apparently I think it is, that there would actually be another. No, there is another, and it is the Book of Boba Fett. I'm kind of excited about that one. Honestly, I'm not the biggest Boba Fett fan. I thought that Tamora Morrison did a really good job with him in The Mandalorian, and it was this is a cool version of Boba Fett. I'd like to see more of this, and now we're going to get a lot more of it in its own standalone show. And I forget the actress's name now who plays Fennec Shand. Ming-Na Wen, I think. I quite like her character. There's not been too much of her, over the 2 seasons, but she is going to be back for that show as well, tagging along with Boba. So that's going to be really cool, I think. I'm looking forward to that one quite a bit. So those 4 shows are all dancing within the same timeline. I think Kathleen Kennedy also said they're going to converge to a big crossover event kind of thing, which is really interesting. So, and I won't really speculate on The Mandalorian in this video, because I'll do a separate video for that, talking about Mandalorian Season 2 and where it's going to go from there. So there's those 4 shows. The Rangers of the New Republic just seems very generic, and there's nothing was really announced about that in terms of details, so it's neither here nor there. Ahsoka, I'm really intrigued, and I do need to see the Clone Wars. Yeah. But, so that's something. Anyway, so those are 4 shows right there. Animated-wise, we have The Bad Batch, which I think is linked to the Clone Wars or something like that. I'm not too sure. That there's a trailer for it. I didn't watch it. People seem to be excited about it, so cool, I guess. And I'm not I'm not trying to be dismissive to be a dick. I just it's one of those things where I just think I need to watch the Clone Wars, be acquainted with it before I start even thinking about or getting interested in stuff like The Bad Batch or even Rebels. You know, it's just one of those things where I think I need to start at the beginning, you know, right in at the ground level of Star Wars and animation, you know, in terms of TV shows. So that's something that I'll have to get to at some point. Also, animated wise, we have Star Wars Visions, which is going to be, I think it's going to be short, kind of short episodes. I'm not sure if they'll be, I think they'll probably be like kind of standalone one shots, and they're going to be done in anime style, Japanese animation. That is really intriguing. There's a fan-made kind of Star Wars anime style animation that's been on YouTube for many years that's really fucking cool. So I'd like to see that. That's a cool way to take it, I think, and that's something that I'm kind of interested in. Then we have The Acolyte, which is set at the end of the High Republic era, which is, I don't even know anything about that. I think that's kind of a new era that they've created in the new Disney, Lucasfilm, Star Wars canon, so I know nothing about that. And it's supposed to be more of like a kind of mystery thriller. I'm all for stuff like that. I'm really, you know, I'd like to see different styles explored now that we're really going all the way in on Star Wars live action TV show, so why not? Not too much, you know, not too many details otherwise to get really excited about. Then we have Lando, which that one is I hate to say it, I really do hate to say it, but I mean, Billy D. Williams, he's really getting on. I think he's in his 80s now, and he looked great in The Rise of Skywalker. But you know, considering how long these things are gonna, I mean, there's so many shows in development. I hope that he's still, you know, raring to go and can do this series. And you know, I just hope that you know, time permitting and health permitting, that it does actually happen. And I'm intrigued to see whether they'll bring Donald Glover back to kind of maybe do a wrap around, or maybe kind of tag team the different storylines of him as a young man and as an older man. That'd be really interesting. Will they bring back Naomi Aki to play? I've already forgotten her name from The Rise of Skywalker. No offense to her, because I think she's a really good actress. In fact, she did a really good job in the second season of The End of the Fucking World, which is on Netflix. I highly recommend that show, and she's brilliant in the second season of that. But the character, what's her name? Jana? Is it Jana? In Rise of Skywalker, she just felt so unnecessarily shoehorned in. It wasn't really much of a, I don't know. I felt like Rose could have served more of a, you know, a part. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But anyway, so there's a Lando series. That, I think that could be cool. I like that they're doing this and actually bringing back like legacy actors, which we'll get to shortly in just a moment. Then there's, I think, Star Wars Droids, or a droid story or something like that. And I was kind of like, oh, this could be cool, but it's actually an animated show. So I thought it would have been cool if it was live action, but obviously Anthony Daniels has come back to voice C-3PO. And that's another thing, and I won't get too much into Mandalorian Season 2, but I kind of, and well, even with Billy D. Williams, it felt like The Rise of Skywalker was this last hurrah for so many of those, you know, legacy characters and the actors who performed them. But now, you know, Mark Hamill, his last performance as Luke Skywalker isn't in The Rise of Skywalker. Anthony Daniels' last performance as C-3PO won't be in The Rise of Skywalker, and the same with Billy D. Williams as Lando. So it's a good thing. I don't want to say it's a bad thing, but I did like the finality of that film in that sense. But I'm also all for just doing more stuff. Like, why not? You know, it's a fun world and galaxy and universe to explore. So let's just do a quick head count here. So we got Rangers of the New Republic, Ahsoka, The Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian Season 3, The Bad Batch, Visions, The Acolyte, Lando, The Droid Thing. So there's got to be two other shows. I might have missed one somewhere along the way there. But the main one that most people are kind of talking about, well, at least they were when the announcement was made, was, of course, Obi-Wan. I kind of wish they'd come up with better titles for this. I like The Book of Boba Fett. I really love that it's not just called Boba Fett. Like, they're getting a little bit generic now. It started with, you know, Solo, just Solo, you know, and then we have Lando, and then we have Ahsoka, and now we have Obi-Wan Kenobi. I just think they could get a bit more creative with those titles. And you look at the titles of the Star Wars movies. The Empire Strikes Back, Attack of the Clones. Like, they're meant to have these hammy, cheesy subtitles, and I feel like they're kind of missing that in favor of being a bit more cool and kind of branded. You know what I mean? Like, I think they could really lean in. I mean, it was all based on serials from the 30s and 40s, where it was like this episodic storytelling. I feel like that it's almost coming full circle for Star Wars now. It's becoming what George was initially inspired by when he was a kid. It's becoming that kind of serialized kind of space opera fun. But I think they can lean into that a bit more and do some kind of more fun titles, I think, than just Lando, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know, it's just me. So that's the show that has really got people talking, because we knew that Ewan McGregor was coming back, Deborah Chow directing that whole series, and they announced that Hayden Christensen would be returning as Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. This really intrigued me. I was talking to a friend in work about that, like, it would be really cool if they brought Hayden back. That would be interesting. And so when they announced it, I was like, wow, good for him. That's really cool. And then she dropped a line that really worried me. She said that this will be the rematch of the century. And I'm like, I don't know if I feel good about that one. I like the idea that Obi-Wan and Vader didn't see each other between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. That line in the very first movie, we meet again at last. When I left you, I was but the learner, now I am the master, something like that. And it just feels like there's a really loaded reunion in that first film when you think about the way they left things. But at the same time, I do think there's more emotion to be milked out of that relationship. And someone pointed out a really interesting thing, and it's something that I've always wondered about. It's one of those like lines in the original trilogy that always not bothered me or bugged me, but stuck out, like, even when I was a kid. And it's when Luke is trying to convince Vader to turn back to the good, and it's when they're on Endor, the forest moon, just before they get taken up to see the Emperor, and he's really trying to plead to his father's conscience, and Vader's just like, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. You don't know the power of the so there's that line that's kind of just, there's like a pause between the next line where it's like he's contemplating it, and he's just like, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. And then he kind of catches himself and just goes back into his, the dark side spiel. So there's that line, like, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. So Obi-Wan once thought that, I could be turned back, is what he's saying. And that there is still good in me. So, but that's not shown in Revenge of the Sith, because they just blow up and they fight, they half kill each other, and that's it. So, it stands to reason that they might have crossed paths again, but there is also kind of the thing where we end Revenge of the Sith with Obi-Wan kind of retiring to Tatooine to kind of keep an eye on Luke, but who's to say that he doesn't leave Tatooine, and, you could say that him going off and having an altercation with Vader and then leaving, you think Vader would have him followed, and then that would lead him right back to Luke. But, you have to kind of go along with the fact that it makes no sense whatsoever in the original trilogy that they hid Vader's son Luke under the name of Skywalker on the place where Anakin's mother is buried. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's one of those massive flaws of the storytelling, which doesn't really matter. It ultimately just doesn't. But, when you start thinking, oh, well, and I have to catch myself and think, it doesn't really matter. And there probably is something really cool and emotional that could come out of those two characters crossing paths again, and as portrayed by the same actors that did them in the prequel trilogy. Now, the other thing that I'm worried about is James Earl Jones is going to do the voice, right? I mean, he's still around. He did a great... I mean, I remember vividly sitting in the cinema watching Rogue One and being really, like, powerfully affected by hearing his voice again through that costume in live action. It was really fucking cool and powerful, I thought. So, I don't know, does the mask come off? Do we see kind of the scarred Anakin? I don't know. I think that, it's weird because you say that Hayden's back. Is he just going to walk around in the suit and then James Earl Jones does the voice? It's a really tricky one, and he does the voice in Revenge of the Sith as well. So it's, Hayden's voice kind of dies the moment that he burns up on that, that on the side of the lava flow there. So I don't know where they're going with that. And I kind of did wish that the Obi-Wan series would be like, and this is unrealistic for me to think of this, but I kind of hoped that it would be this kind of artsy, 5 hours of Obi-Wan in the desert, like existential stuff, like racked with guilt and grief and really dark stuff. And, it's probably going to be a bit more globe-trotting or galaxy, exploring than that, which, again, I like the idea of Obi-Wan being in exile for like 20 years, but for the show to happen, I think it needs to be a bit broader than that. But well, I don't know. I don't think it has to be, but I think that for them to justify making a series out of it, and they have like delayed it because I think apparently the word on the street is that they needed to do some rewriting and stuff. So I have no idea why that is, but it's going to be really intriguing to see where they go with that. And yeah, it's cool. I'm into it. I just hope that they don't kind of have Hayden do the voice. I think that will just be a weird blip in the continuity that just won't quite work. And it's strange that they didn't say Hayden will be coming back as Darth Vader and James Earl Jones will be providing the voice in the suit. Because there is a way to do it where you take off the mask and you see Anakin underneath. Or they could do flashbacks. I think that maybe Hayden's still looks, I mean, it's been 15 years now since Revenge of the Sith, but I think he could probably still pull off that same, maybe smooth some kind of Vaseline on the lens. You could kind of get away with him looking like he did in 2005, and I think that you could probably do the same with Ewan McGregor. Anyway, so that's pretty much my thoughts on the shows. I'm very much looking forward to the Obi-Wan show more than anything. The Ahsoka one I'm really intrigued by, and the Boba Fett one I'm really looking forward to as well. There has been talk of saturation, they're doing too much, and I'm just like, well, why not? If you don't like it, don't watch. It's as simple as that. Is you can have too much of a good thing, but it seems like there's a lot of variety, And I'm just, to be honest, I'm kind of really looking forward to when we just get away from a lot of that legacy stuff. And, Obi-Wan, yeah, sure, let's do it now while Ewan McGregor's still around and age appropriate for the role and everything. But same with, Billy D. Williams. But I'm kind of more interested in the possibility and the potential of these, like the Acolyte. And then people are already saying, like, well, Palpatine would have been around and fairly young by that time period. And it's like, no, don't lean into all these characters. We don't need to know all the backstory. We don't need to know every single fucking detail. Give us just new stuff. And that's what I'm excited about by what I'm going to be talking about in just a second, which is the 2 new movies that have been announced. So that's my thoughts on the series. Moving forward, and I might have missed one of them, I think, because that was 10, not 11. Anyway, Rogue Squadron will be the next Star Wars movie in, I believe, 2023. So we got another 3 years for it before. So it'll be like a 4-year gap, and I think that's needed. It's really necessary. And while the production value of The Mandalorian, especially in season 2, is really almost like a Star Wars movie. It doesn't quite feel like that to me, but it's almost there. It's there enough that it still feels kind of special. For the most part, there's certainly a few episodes where you see, they just went out into the Californian desert to film this one. It looks like a cheap episode of a TV show. Anyway, so now we have this big movie that's coming out called Rogue Squadron, which will be directed by Patty Jenkins. I don't think I've seen many of her films, or I'm not aware of that anyway. The only one I'm aware of the fact that she's the director is Wonder Woman, which I thought was really great. I really enjoyed that film, probably more than most of the DC films of that canon and storyline, like the whole Zack Snyder kind of continuity. I think Wonder Woman for me is like the best one. So I think she's a pretty damn good director and a good action director. So I think that Rogue Squadron could be pretty fun, but I'm not really that excited about it just yet. It's kind of like a Rogue One situation for me, where it's it's not about the Force and the Jedi and I like that kind of high concept fantasy stuff. The pilots and the kind of flying is not my favorite thing. But I'll still watch it for sure. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I do think that, and this is the reason I have Solo here in the background, I do think Solo kind of unwittingly and unfortunately became kind of like the bastard child of the Star Wars movie timeline and chronology, because it was the one that kind of just took all the whipping in terms of like, oh, this is like they've really like lost their footing here with the Star Wars movies, and after The Last Jedi no one cares about all this crap and everything, and it didn't make as much money and it wasn't as exciting to people because it wasn't this big story that was about the fate of the galaxy, and that's what I ultimately loved about it. I loved that Solo was this small-scale, pulpy kind of adventure that wasn't kind of, I don't want to say bogged it down, because I love Rogue One, but Rogue One is very much propped up by nostalgia. You got the Death Star, we got Darth Vader, you got a lot of these elements, like the TIE Fighters. It's set right in the original trilogy era. Solo was like 1 foot in the originals, 1 foot in the prequels. The rest is all in its own kind of world, and then you just have a story that's mainly about the characters and not the wider kind of ramifications of what's going on. I loved that. It was just, again, it felt like going back to what George was originally inspired by, which was these pulpy adventure sci-fi serials, and it was just a fun adventure. I liked the fact that it wasn't this galaxy at stake story. Even though that's my favorite version of Star Wars, I think that they needed to break out of that. And Solo was kind of the first film to do that, the first big Star Wars project to do that. And it showed me that that can still work and I can still love it as Star Wars. And The Mandalorian was kind of doing that, but I feel like with the second season of The Mandalorian that the galaxy is just getting smaller and smaller. And it's like, oh, now this character's here, now this character's here. And again, it isn't about the fate of the galaxy, but I just, well, again, Solo is like bringing in Han Solo and Chewbacca. That was very much propped up my nostalgia as well, and Lando and the Millennium Falcon. So I guess what I was just talking about doesn't hold as much water as I thought it did. But just in terms of like the stakes of the story, I guess is what I'm getting at. I just think that Rogue Squadron is probably just going to be this film that is maybe a bit like Top Gun. It isn't really like going to be about this big kind of, fighting the bad guys, and if we lose, the galaxy is over, that kind of thing. So then again, maybe it is. Maybe it could be about the attack on the Death Star. I don't know. It could be the backstory of that, and then they just they make a movie about every single detail of the first film, and it's like, hey, let's watch, like 10 years time, let's watch Star Wars. Okay, so we've got to watch Rogue One, Rogue Squadron, and then we've got to watch that movie. Then there's the movie about the you'll be dead guy. Now we got to watch his backstory before we watch the first one. Oh, and then there's like the the movie about the mechanic who built land speeders. I hope they don't go too far down that road, and I do think that Rogue Squadron will probably be a separate story from like the Death Star attack, but who knows? I mean, I certainly wouldn't put it past them. Anyway, after that, we have the announcement that at an unscheduled, undated, point in time in the future, the next Star Wars movie will be another standalone directed by Taika Waititi, who is currently writing the film. And there was like a little logo that looked really interesting, and that's kind of, it doesn't really give anything away, but, Kathleen Kennedy has said that it's going to be something, I think she said it's going to be kind of original and fresh and something different, and I don't have any reason to distrust that, given the fact that Taika is directing it. I loved what he did with Thor Ragnarok. He made a film that fit within the story and characters of the Thor world, but he kind of injected his own humor into it and took it in a really wacky place, and yet it still felt like it fit in the larger tapestry of the MCU. But it just stood out so much, and it really had such a fun flair to it. And we've already seen that Taika can direct Star Wars very well when he directed one of the episodes of The Mandalorian Season 1. And I think it's obvious that he didn't come back for Season 2 because he was going to work on a movie. So I hope it's something completely different, like absolutely wildly different. And I really look forward to that. Otherwise, again, I do fear that they're just going to keep going to that well again and again and again. And, well, I mean, it's pleasing some people, and I'm not really disappointed with anything that they've done. Like, literally any, movie or show that Lucasfilm has produced since Disney bought Star Wars, I haven't been disappointed with any of it. But I definitely do feel like moving forward, they need to do things differently and just explore new stories and not always lean on those characters that, I mean, there is a rich history and so many characters that they can play around with, and they have been doing that and to good effect, but I do think we need to kind of branch out a little bit more and do stuff that's just a little bit more different. And that's why I was excited about the prospect of Rian Johnson doing a trilogy of, an original trilogy that wasn't connected to anything else. That would have been really exciting, and people were kind of holding out hope that they'd say something about that. Yes, there are actually people who are looking forward to the prospect of that, and it's interesting because there's been nothing really said about it, but they haven't really publicly cancelled it either, because of course they had the two guys from Game of Thrones, I forget their names, they were kind of announced to do their own Star Wars series of movies, and then they announced that they were now not doing it, so they haven't made the announcement that Ryan's off the table. But he's obviously doing his own thing. They're obviously really taking their time now with the movies, so I hope it happens. I really would like to see what he would do with something that is is not weighed down with characters that people love so much that they really can't handle certain storytelling choices anyway. So that's my thoughts. I thought I could do this in like 10 minutes, but hey, it's me. That's my thoughts on the Disney announcements, and yeah, I'll try and watch all of them. I probably will keep up because another thing I like is that they're not like going like balls to the wall like 20 episode seasons. It's like 8 episode seasons. That's a really good kind of not limit, but it's just a really good kind of chunk that isn't too much. Like I like that, and I like that they release it weekly. I know some people are not into that, the whole binge watching thing, but I like the weekly staggered releases. It feels a bit more like a TV show, like a serial. Again, going all the way back to the beginning of the inspiration for this whole world and universe to begin with. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below of what you think of the new shows and the movies and the possibilities of the future, things that you'd like to see in the future, and I'll see you in the next video, I guess. So thanks for watching.